you can be impactful, be doing something of impact, but not really be growing in your visionary assignment. If you're someone who everything about your decision is mirrored after what you see or after who you see, what happens when that person shifts their trajectory? What will happen is simple. You would also shift your trajectory because it is almost subconscious. Your orbit of meaning and of definition is not necessarily vision. It is simulation. It is what you feel represents an ideal. And often, what you think represents an ideal is not ideal for you. The 7 mental models every builder must think from to scale the trajectory or shift the trajectory of their outcomes. Now, one of the reasons why mental models are really essential is, and we say this so much that I will sound like a broken record, right? How you think determines how you live. And there is something that I would often say in meetings like this. It is that many times the aphorisms or the quotes that we have, those if you think well, you will live well, all of those things, a lot of times, because of how common it is, because of how familiar it is, what happens is we tend to lose the essence of the statement. So you hear people who say things, for example, like success is 80% mindset and 20% hard work. But the question is, do you even know what that means practically for your context? Do you understand what it means? So one of those words that we also assume we understand is the word results or outcomes. So once we hear results, once we hear outcomes, it's like, oh, I want to be more, right? But you don't even understand, what does more look like to me? What does result look like to me? So we say these things a whole lot that we tend to lose touch with the meaning of those things. So you hear people say things like, oh, you need to have your own version of success. But deep down is a lie. The version of success that you're still pursuing is not yours. It's not that it's bad. It's just that it's not contextualized for you. So that was how I started the conversation last month. And I asked the question, I said, how big do you want your brand, your work, your business? How big do you want it to be? Right? And you'll find that for a whole lot of us, it's not a question that we are actively thinking about. And it's not what is even guiding our every decision. So it's still vague. For example, saying, oh, I want to be able to help women to grow their capacity. What do you really mean? I've said this before. There are different ways you can help a woman. Do you understand? There are different ways you can help a woman. Everybody in this room, for example, can be into women's coaching, and you all are doing different things. So you first need to understand, when I'm saying result, what does that even mean for me? When I look at the highest version of my vision, what does that really look like? Many times, you know what we do? We adopt people's own visions. And it's one of the reasons why it's why this conversation of fulfillment, it's why it's a very, very long talk. You know, where we say purpose, impact, and all of those things. Not necessarily, because you can be impactful, be doing something of impact, but not really be growing in your visionary assignment. You will think that you are, but you are not. Now, Simon Cowell started he was the origin of all of these talent shows. America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent. He also created X Factor. That's where even things like Dancing with the Stars, The Voice, Project Fame, that's where they all came from, right? He started it. Now, the truth is, there are 2 lessons there. One, he built that when it wasn't a thing anybody was thinking could be rewarded, right? It wasn't a thing that anybody was thinking was relevant or sensible, because, I mean, you study something like what Simon Cowell is doing with AGT, and I always like to find out how are you making money? My mind always go to, I get it, I can see impact. But I want to understand what's the model running this. You understand what I mean? And he has built something so formidable that, yeah, he's an origin. And the thing with being an origin is you will have duplicates, right? And it's normal. You can't, it's the reason why even this conversation of originality, it is dicey. Reason being, for you to be original, it means that you need many copies. Do you understand? Because that is what also gives credibility to your originality. So someone can be the origin of something, but there would be multiple copies. So it's not necessarily about, personally, I'm not bothered about the copies, but we can have few powerful and potent originals. Now, if an origin is so strong, you also know it from the copies, right? Let me use the Apple, for example. Apple devices was something that a man said this was possible. He went through it. Now, we can have different conversation around phones today. But one of the reasons why the technology world is moving the way it's moving, you see an Android phone that the only thing an Apple phone can compete with it on is maybe the privacy or the camera. And in reality, there are Android phones that are now better than some iPhones. Now, the innovativeness or the innovation of the Apple necessitated other technologies to adapt quick. Do you understand? So it accelerated the pace of their innovation. It accelerated the pace of their evolution, their growth, and everything. So even when we say, oh, Samsung, all of these phones can compete because somebody laid that model, the foundation down. However, there is also another lesson, and it is that somebody is building based on a vision. Another person may be building based on the model that works. And when you are building based on just the model that works, I mean, if you're doing business, that's the best way to go. Build based on the model that works, right? The thing is, there is a limit to that because models would always change. Models would always change. It's the reason why if you're someone who, for example, everything about your decision is mirrored after what you see or after who you see. What happens when that person shifts their trajectory? What will happen is simple. You would also shift your trajectory. Do you understand? You would also shift your trajectory because it is almost subconscious. Your orbit of meaning and of definition is not necessarily vision. It is simulation. It is what you feel represents an ideal. And often, what you think represents an ideal is not ideal for you. So it's the reason why a question we want to always sit with. What does result look like for me in this season? Tangibly. It's not a question that you even need to answer. You don't need to answer it with bogus language. You can describe it. What does it look like to me? What does result look like to me? What is the highest expression of my vision? What does it look like to me? What does growth look like? What does stability look like to me? Because another challenge is for a lot of us, we tend to be so intoxicated by a future now that we cannot see the present now. So it is more about who I want to be. And the thing with that mindset is the goalpost will always keep shifting. There will always be someone doing better than you. Facts. There will always be more you can do. But when you can always define what does result look like to me this year, this season, over the next 90 days, this month, what that also does for you is it puts you in a place where you are really grateful and you can really build. So for a lot of us as well, because we exist in a future now, we are harassed by possibility. What happens is that it affects our ability to build now. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the possibility of a better you, a better business, a better brand harasses you from the necessary steps you even need to take now so that you can experience the fullness of what you see. So it's almost the same thing I was saying with the person I said I had a conversation with, and I said, you are not good enough yet. And when I say you're not good enough yet, I'm not speaking on your identity. Right? I'm speaking on your work, your expression. It's not good enough yet. You can't ship this. You can't put this out in the market and expect to attract the kind of people you say you want to attract. No, you will not. You will not. And while I was still having the conversation, that if you are able, this is where you want your brand, this is what you want your brand to look like. The question then becomes, what can I begin to do today that takes me closer to that? Even if it means compromising on certain parts of that vision. For example, you want your product to serve a specific demographic, but you are not yet able to. You first recognize what leverage do you currently have and who can that product currently serve, even if it's not at the price point you wanted to. Do you know why? You are taking real-time feedback. You are building real-time evidence. But for a whole lot of us, because you don't even know, you don't really know how efficient or inefficient you are, how competent or incompetent you are. You don't necessarily know how to truly see where am I now? What can I do now? What can I build now? Even if this is not where I'm headed, this is version 1, right? This is version 1. I'm headed to version 10, yes. But currently, I'm not version 10. What you even realize as you start the journey is you were even assuming a lot about that vision.